What is normal where you live, but would be considered crazy anywhere else? Apparently, being in a restaurant for hours and hours and only eating 1% of the time. We talk for hours before and after eating here. So why don't we leave right after eating? Everyone I knew from other countries found it strange. Sounds like Italy to me, since I find it normal. My one problem visiting Italy was that you'd get good service from the waiter until you finished eating. Then you couldn't find someone to pay for ages. I get it's a cultural thing to hang out, but I have things to do. That's how it was in France as well. Only French waitstaff would notice groups of Americans pretty quickly and would treat us different. Not bad different, but I think they knew American ways. More so, they would start pulling pitchers of tap water. Apparently Americans drink a lot of tap water, and French people don't. And they would give us the bill faster. Come to think of it, living in France for a year, it definitely became easy to notice groups of Americans. Not all restaurants had a cashier, and I certainly tried to get waiters, or literally anyone's attention. It just felt like I became invisible once the food arrived. Just get up and try to leave. Someone will be with you soon enough. And if not, well, it's on the house. Having your birthday party look like this. Your living room is transformed so that there's a great circle of chairs with a coffee table in the center. It's an afternoon party. Guests will visit between 1400 and 1700, or 1800 through 2100. There's one time slot for friends and one for family. As a guest, you arrive, you congratulate the birthday boy or girl, hand over your present, then you introduce yourself to the group if you don't know them yet. Then you go over to the circle and shake everyone's hand, and also congratulate them with so-and-so's birthday. After making your way through the circle, you take your empty chair, and that is now your seat for the rest of the party. After everyone arrived, the birthday person will bring you a piece of cake, a beverage, usually coffee or tea. Everyone eats their cake and talks to the person sitting next to him or her. After everyone is done, there will be a tour of the house, and any new things will be pointed out to you. Now is your moment to ask some questions like, "Oh, was it expensive?" and also compliment the host on how great it is. After the tour, there will be another round of food and drinks. Snacks will be laid out on the coffee table, but you shouldn't eat much of it. This is the only food that will be brought out and everyone has to share. After guests were there for about 3 hours, they'll leave again. Everyone knows they're expected to leave, but you need to come off as really wanting to stick around longer. But you just couldn't because the dog needs to go for a walk or something. Make up an excuse that sounds probable. Then repeat the cycle again in the evening with the other group. The weekend after that, invite your close friend to come over and have the real party. In our family, we always had these celebrations on my grandma's birthday, which were impressive even by Dutch standards, especially the last few years. As the grandchildren grew up and started bringing boy/girlfriends, at some point grandma ran out of chairs, so you start to bring your own. You had 30 plus chairs crammed in a small living room and no way to bring the cake around without stepping on someone's toes in the process. In Eiffel, Germany, on the night of the 1st of May, people paint a long line from one house to another. The line means that the house in these households is having an affair. Every year, several relationships break up because of this. I love it. Does anyone ever do that just to mess with people? Like if I don't like two people, would it be expected for me to mess around with them by painting a line from their door to someone else I hate? In Australian rural towns, we had all our back doors unlocked, and friends were allowed to go through the back door and make themselves a cup of tea/coffee while they wait for you to get back from whatever you were doing. Still being in the same house as your parents after marriage, also with kids. Well, same in the Philippines, but if you help out with chores and bills, and you have space in the house, and as a couple you don't have money yet, I don't see a problem. Not really crazy. Tons of Asian families do this, and even after you moved out after marriage, your parents might move back in with you because they're getting old and need help. Traditions aside, housing prices are insane in some cities. Many, but not all, Germans are restricting themselves to exactly one hot meal per day. I've heard sentences such as, "No, I can't. I already ate a warm at lunch. I tried so hard to find a breakfast place that sells cold food. Let's just eat bread. I've had hot lunch. You can't eat 2 hot meals. That's too much." I still don't get why it has to be no more and less than 1 hot meal. And why do breakfast pancakes not count as hot food? At least for me, I usually find that I eat significantly more if I have a hot meal. Having a cold dinner usually means I have a stool, which is a German word for a slice of bread with toppings of your choosing, usually wurst or Käse. A hot meal means I go all out, source of protein, carbs, fat, a small dessert after, etc. So for me, it's simply about the amount of food I want to / physically can consume in a day. My city is extremely bilingual. Everyone speaks both English and French. You'll hear people speaking both languages in conversation quite often, sometimes in the same sentence. In stores, most of the time, people greet you with both languages, and you reply in one of them, which tells them which language you prefer to talk in. They go, bonjour, hi, and you say bonjour back if you want to continue in French, or hi if you'd rather speak in English. It's kinda crazy. I'm from Montreal, Canada. Where I used to live in Manitoba, nobody had fences, mainly because when the properties were divided up, the town planners left space that belonged to the town behind all of them. That was just a strip of forest and Canadian Shield, so almost nobody put up fences because it cut off their view and access to what was essentially a super cool nature trail network throughout the town. Everyone knew once you hit mowed grass, that belonged to someone. Us kids barely ever went anywhere on the foot via roads or sidewalks. We always took the trails. We rode bikes on the roads though. There were too many rocks on the trails for a regular kid's bike. Of course, living in a forest had some unintended consequences. We frequently had bears, so I remember when I wasn't even 5 yet being taught what to do if I saw a bear. And 2 separate years we had a mountain lion, which was a lot worse. The town would hire someone to trap and relocate these animals, but it always took a while. I remember watching a bear lying down under the crabapple tree in our front yard just eating all the windfall apples for ages. Not a care in the world. Free Sundays in Germany. Literally everything is closed on Sundays, which is amazing because everyone, except most essentials like doctors, fighters, and police, have a free day, which is awesome. In my state, US, Texas, we have a different spin. Beer and wine are often sold at every regular grocery stores and markets nowadays, but higher alcohol content, hard liquor, has to be sold at liquor stores. Liquor stores have an odd regulation on them too, odd hours, and cannot be located near schools, etc. Here's the weirdest twist. While the liquor stores are not government owned like in your country, there's a weird Texas law that dictates that publicly traded companies cannot sell liquor or own liquor stores, so all the liquor stores are essentially family-owned operations. Drinking alcohol for the first time when you're around 14 years old. In Germany, it is legal to buy beer and wine when you're 16, so the majority of parents don't see it as a problem when the first drunk experience happens a few years earlier. Actually, it is hard to find a teenager here that has never tried alcohol before. Picking up roadkill for your table. Gotta temp it first, but if it's fresh or new and frozen, it's good. I mean, I've never done it, but I've researched it. I've watched YouTube videos of people claiming stretches of road. They would go and spray paint existing roadkill, then they would go along it every morning and pick up any fresh roadkill. It depends on the animal, of course. It's perfectly normal and safe to eat a deer, boar, pheasant, or turkey, which has been dead for several hours. Obviously, the meat needs to be checked for parasites, especially the boar, for trichinosis and tapeworms. However, the meat is no different than something that has been shot by a hunter and sat on the back of a truck for several hours. I don't find anything insane about that. I would do it because I don't have the tools, space, and patience to clean and part the carcass. I think when people hear roadkill, they imagine a dead pigeon or a ground up hedgehog that's been sitting on the side of the road for weeks. In Austria, around Christmas/St. Nicholas time, we have events called Krampushlauf, where people, mostly young, drunk men, dress up as demonic, devil-like creatures called Krampus with fursuits, creepy masks, and cowbells, and pull off shows that include lots of fire, smoke, witch burning, etc., while mainly Rammstein plays in the back. They also like to whip people in the audience with cowtails. And hell yeah, we enjoy the show while getting drunk on hot punch. We even bring our kids along. People who are 12 through 14 driving tractors on the roads in rural Ireland. The legal minimum age is 16, but most farmers don't really care. My grandma drove her tractor without a license for over 60 years in rural Germany. Sadly, she passed last month, but my Oma Berta was a badass lady farmer for sure. I live in New Jersey, and it's illegal here for you to pump your own gas/fuel. All stations are full service by law. I believe Oregon is the only other state in the US that has this law. I live next to a game reserve in South Africa. It's not that surprising to hear baboons in your backyard or spot a rhino 10 meters from your fence. One time, a whole troop of baboons ran over our roof. It only corrugated iron, and we all shat our pants. I remember visiting a game reserve in South Africa. We were the last tour to be out, and we saw an armed group of men driving past us while returning. Our guide told us it was to protect the reserve because hunters come at night and try to kill the rhinos, specifically to sell their horns on the black market. They had a little baby rhino at the time and were on high alert. In Norway, it's normal to release 2 million sheep into the wild, mostly unsupervised, where an estimated 100,000 of them die to either injuries, illness, or predators, with the farmers crying and complaining, usually only to that last one, and then repeat the same process again the next year and every year after that. Does Norway kinda have a fucked up and moronic sheep farming practice? Yes. Yes, we do. I would guess it's the cheapest way to do it, and that the sheep are used for controlling the spread of forests. Although Norway have very little forest left compared to the size of the country, there would be nothing wrong with letting it grow back in several places. The world has a problem of dwindling forests in nature anyway, not the opposite. Not to mention that one of the sheep that do make it home, apparently several tons of sheep meat end up not eaten every year. A lot stands to the reason that the Norwegian sheep population could be cut in half, if not more. The problem is actually enforcing this when many farmers would lose their jobs, would just plain refuse to adapt themselves to nature/predators, than the other way around. Because really, there's no making sense of Norway, a country with 5 million inhabitants, needing 2 million sheep, while Sweden with 10 million inhabitants gets by with only 300,000 sheep. It falls down to tradition, and the type of tradition that makes less and less sense the more time goes by, and more people notice the illogical aspects of it. I always find it funny that people going to the military is this big and respectable thing in countries like the US, but a lot of countries like here in South Korea, it's just a requirement. The original reason for having a conscript army was protecting democracy, i.e., preventing the government from having a professional armed force of mercenaries at its disposal. Apparently, that's no longer something that we should worry about. No, the original reason for conscript armies is that you can get a lot of soldiers that way to fight. Here in Germany, we had conscription because there was the Red Army just across the border, and you need soldiers just in case. Now the Red Army is gone, and with it went the conscription. In the US, there's no reason for a levy en masse. Say in 2002, there were 4 million live births in the US, 2 million of those were boys. What is the point of having 2 million recruits every year for the US? Under what scenario would the US need to raise even just say 10 million soldiers? Experiencing 4 seasons every day. Jacket on, jacket off. It's sunny, but it's raining, freezing, and windy. Then it's hot again. I like to wear shorts and puffer jacket combos for both extremes. Tasmania. I feel like this is true in a bunch of places. I used to live in Newfoundland, Canada, and we would frequently wake up with snow on the ground, freezing temperatures, and by the afternoon, all the snow would be gone and it would be 20 degrees Celsius and sunny. Calling a water fountain a bubbler. Calling an ATM a time machine. Real tailgating. Cheese on apple pie. And wearing a foam cheese on your head. Well, in Lithuania, we have a hill of crosses with over 200,000 crosses. We have a hotel where you live in a jail, and an ex-KGB agent shouts at you and dogs bark at you all the time. I live in Dublin, and when we tell people who live in America that we put crisps in sandwiches, they laugh at us. Just try it, mate. It's so good. Cougars walking through my yard most nights. We live in a forest with lots of cougars, estimated 200 within 10 miles. And since we live near the edge and don't have dogs, the cougars use our yard to pass through. It's not a big deal unless one of the males walks under our window. They stink really strongly and will wake you up with the stench. Instead of ordering an Uber or calling a cab, you just lift your arm at the side of the road and get into the first car that's stopping, quickly telling the driver where you want to go and how much you want to pay. If he agrees, you get in and he drives you there. Everyone does this, from young girls to commuters in the mornings to grannies who don't want to carry their heavy bags all the way home by foot. It's the unsafest and most efficient transportation system ever. Here in the Philippines, there are communities that are poor, depressed, and oppressed. They opt out to scavenge leftover food like fried chicken, burger patties, etc. from backdoor garbage disposals. Then they bring it to their shanties to recook it. You could check it out on YouTube. Just type "eating pag Philippines." Ever heard about arranged marriage in India? They don't know each other and get married happily. They even don't allow to get to know each other before wedding. And it's 21st century. This ritual is still going on in some places like villages, and it's all horrifying. In the Philippines, we get paid by the day and not by the hour. And before we get to work, we have to gather so many IDs and documents just for employment. Our minimum wage is also $10 a day. And this is just in the city area. In the provinces, we have a thing called a provincial wage, and it's $8 a day. And this is not including taxes. Not really specific to where I live, but where I work, we use this thing for rigging called a horsecock. Literally nobody knows what it's actually called. Anyways, it's always funny to ask the new guy to grab the horsecock. Not so funny when 5 guys have to ask the lady at the reception if our horsecock has come in yet. Also, there's this thing in Newfoundland called Mummers Night. You dress up and you go around knocking on your neighbor's door. If they answer, they have to let you in and give you free drinks until they can figure out who you are, and then you go to the next house. Basically, Halloween for adults. Let me introduce you to Britain. For one, it's illegal to have locking pump handles. You need to just sit there and keep squeezing the pump handle. On the plus side, you don't have to prepay. You just drive up to the pump, take it off, and start pumping. Then you walk in and pay after you fueled up. Adults dating 15 plus minors. It's honestly very concerning to see that the majority doesn't see the problem with that. People carrying M16s in the streets without a second look. Some people not wearing any footwear to observe a festival for 9 days, even if they go out. Yes, I've seen one when I visited India. It blew my mind. Also, India is an amazing place when you close your eyes to all the bad stuff. I remember Bang on Holi. That was an eye-opener. Nobody told me that drink was basically an edible. Where I live, it is normal for about 15% of the population not to work and get paid by the government, since they are praying to God, and that's important too. Of course, the rest of the people pay for them. In my hometown, it was totally normal to say and write on your car, "Go bust a nut," during high school football season. My high school mascot was the acorn. The youngest I came across was a kid very expertly driving a forklift with the pedal extenders at 7 to 8. He really just wanted to be a farmer like his dad. And his dad wasn't turning down extra help. Just 2-ish weeks ago, a 7 to 8-year-old boy was driving a very large John Deere tractor, a manure spreader through what seemed like an obstacle course of barns, paddocks, to spread over the next door neighbor's fields in Maryland. That kid drives better than my 30-year-old something husband. Knew a guy who was a construction contractor, and his 10-year-old was a master with a Bobcat skid loader deal. It was hilarious. He was as good as the guys on the job site who had been doing it for like 6 years. I'm in Johannesburg, and the amount of times that we've heard that a lion has randomly gotten loose somewhere